Hello and welcome back to the Power Podcast with me and the very squeaky chair, as well as Sam
Hey.
and Alex.
Hello.
Awesome, that was very smoothly introduced. Bollocks.
Nailed it!
Bam! First time, baby.
We're professionals.
I definitely
Exactly.
am going to edit this out. No, I'm not. So, this week...
You
What's
editing.
that?
that
Not
hurts.
this in America.
So yeah, gonna say this episode we're talking about superpower martial arts or special power or special ability or power martial arts. Basically, any type of special abilities, powers, superpowers, or basically things that aren't considered normal physical human or normal physical creature possible abilities, and then turning them into special types of martial arts. For instance, you've got Last Airbender, aka the Avatar universe, even in the Legend of Korra. They're all based on manipulation of one specific type of element or multiple types of elements, and that yet they're entirely solely based around real life martial arts. Like Kung Fu, Karate, and I think Tai Chi and Taekwondo.
Yeah, I actually did research on this. I know the exact ones in which they're mainly based on.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Go on.
Do you want to know? Okay, waterbending is
Tai Chi.
based on the flip. Yeah, that's Tai Chi. You got one. Got airbending, which is from Bagua, which involves a lot of spinning and defensive moves.
Okay.
And the Fire Nation's bending comes from Northern Shaolin style Kung Fu,
Yes, I
which
got
is
that one.
strong. And yeah, you got that one. And earthbending is from Hungar. Which is lots of really strong stances, big center of gravity, connecting to the earth and just being sort of both offensive but incredibly defensive, like being like immovable. It's so cool.
It's so cool, guys! Oh my god!
And it's really cool. What's extra cool is like the main choreographer is the guy called Sifu Kisu, and he is a martial arts master. He has 40 years of experience in Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, and Shaolin style Kung Fu. Like
I mean, you can
he
really see it in
actually,
the choreography in the animation as well.
yeah, it's like that's why it's so fluid. I mean, that was just like his job for a long time, was just coming up with all of these bending moves. It's like, oh yeah, if you're doing a fireball, then you would do it in a northern style. Like, actually, what also is a really cool fact that I learned from this, that's kind of affects the story's lore as well as like how it's made, is that the northern Shaolin style kung fu is one of the earliest forms of kung fu that can trace its origins back really far, and it's considered like part of one of the earliest styles of kung fu. And the very first you know avatar that we find is at first a firebender. So not only is it the very early style of martial arts, it's also in the show, it's like that's its origins too. It's essentially Prometheus, which I don't know. I just found that really cool. It's like how it goes so deep. Like they've really thought about this of like, where this would come from and how it would develop. Yeah. Sorry, that's you may hear my friend in the background. That's Paul Cooper, who is also a massive fan, and I'm using his Wi-Fi right now, and he's just coming in just like with the Avatar facts and stealing my thunder.
I was actually going to say,
Which is
this actually does create the first brand of exactly what it really means, because I mean, superpowers grant special abilities and physical traits and attributes, but the main concept is that like originally certain forms of martial arts were created to be able to fight against weapon wielders. They were to create a capability of fighting against those with physically larger bodies or greater strength, in a lot of different manners and a lot of different ways. And so because of that, we created these certain types of martial arts. But with superpowers, you wouldn't really normally consider a person with superpowers to usually require martial arts. But obviously in the forms of Avatar, they are... It's kind of almost like the equivalent of like, okay, you are an aerokinetic, you can manipulate the wind. but these movements allow you to channel your body's movements to imitate that of the movements and the changing directions of the currents of air itself. Or the same powers with water. It's the concept of flowing motions and controlling one's own physical form, as well as pressure and weight. And so therefore you've got that in the same forms of the flowing tides. So it really is that kind of the interesting sort of way of it's that kind of almost enhancement, like the idea of a speedster who has the ability to run at an incredible speed and pace, but then they learn like Olympic rate training methods, or even the specific styles and specialties of different running techniques. It really is that thing of like every single bit and piece to give them the extra edge in using their abilities, which is why this is so interesting. It's why it's added into Animite Tales, the Superpower martial arts proficiency, because we wanted it where you could actually make a martial art based on just the usage of your powers. And the thing that I constantly got when I first ever explained this was people would always say like, oh, a martial art is physical and it's about moving the body. But that's the thing, martial art, as almost anyone who's actually been in it for a long period of time would tell you, that it's actually supposed to be a discipline, and therefore there is a lot of mental and spiritual parts and factors to it. So even someone with a power that has no requirements of physical movement or capability, like telepathy, you could still technically add and manipulate your powers in certain ways, in fact in any single way, and consider it a discipline. And considering that it's a martial art, it is an art form to do with combat or defense of combat, it technically still counts, regardless of whether or not it is you physically using your body to fight. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it so much. I was actually going to say my favourite one in particular is definitely I love the Avatars ones, because that is the perfect explanation. But I was actually going to say one particular one is, they show this a lot in My Hero Academia, where a person will have a certain power, like the ability to create explosions, or the ability of super strength, or super speed, or even just an ability to literally control and manipulate like tendrils of energy or something. And it's that thing of, yeah, you could just grab them and that's it, or you could just throw an explosion and that's it. But it's a fighting style to allow like the user to like launch themselves up in the air and keep concussive force of explosions underneath themselves to keep them flying or floating, launching themselves faster to give them an artificial form of super speed, etc, etc. So literally that kind of style of fighting, to use it in a multitude of different ways. You see it more in anime than you do in almost anything else in the Western stuff.
Do you think that's because they're like more like adept to, they have it's more part of their culture, like martial arts, like they have like so many, I mean they have an entire genre of martial arts movies to draw from. So it's like I guess like it's drawing from like detectives and stuff, in our country. Like we have an entire wave of detectives, and we have also superhero detectives, Batman, and I mean they literally come from detective comics.
Well, I guess
so that's like part of it.
I guess you could base it on the fact that like in the sort of samurai Edo period in Japan, they had like ninjas and samurai, and that whole sort of like the whole style of like the samurai or ronin, or the lone warrior sort of style thing. We don't have that personally, not very much, but more in the West. You have in sort of America, you have the actual Western sort of cowboy sort of style thing, where it's the whole concept of the Arizona Ranger and stuff like that. And it's, in all honesty, I feel like that is still like the last sort of time that we ever really got the sort of bards, was when someone would play a song about a gunslinger, and they play the guitar and they sing about them. Like, for instance, Marty Robertson, Big Iron, when he talks about the Arizona Ranger with the big iron on his hip, And that is the closest thing that you can kind of see to having bards in the sort of more modernistic sense, and we don't really have that now anymore. I mean, someone recently argued that technically, when a rapper is telling a story about a person, that's the closest thing we have to it. And I guess so, like a bardic's tale.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's one particular way.
That's what I'm saying with the Animite tales. Obviously, we do have like projectile enhancement as well, so we could have like we could fit that into the superpower martial arts as well, with just like using your abilities as basically gunslinger abilities, or like augmenting your abilities through gunplay. So that's like goes through that. So that's like can fit into the idea of like creating all of these techniques which you either augment your powers or you use your powers through, or
yeah. I mean,
vice versa.
It's what I was trying to get at before we go off too much on a tangent. But made by me is I was actually saying, like, from the Eastern style, as you said, yeah, it's their sort of thing is more martial arts in the terms of physical fighting, samurais, ninjas, warriors, stuff like that, to do with melee combat. And then you've got more the Western style. They sort of idealize, detectives in the more sort of modern era, more contemporary, but a little bit further. If you have ever watched The Mandalorian, it is basically a spaghetti western, a sci-fi spaghetti western. And that's where sort of a lot of their things draw on, like the one guy who can take down opponents because he has a gun that can kill anything, or at least he knows exactly how he can use his weapons and gadgetry. Exactly why we have sort of Batman, Jonah Hex, and other sort of characters like that who don't really have any powers but can still fight almost on equal terms with these sort of almost seemingly godlike characters, because they know how to deal with their abilities, or at least they eventually figure it out. But obviously we're not really talking about them. We're talking about, as you said, the ones with powers that augment the original abilities. Kind of like Superman has martial arts, but then if you go from Batman to Superman has learnt two different styles of martial arts. Sam, do you know them off the top of your head?
Martial arts Superman has?
Yeah, the martial arts Superman has. Do you know the name of them?
As you are the DC boy.
And he has the run very quickly and punch someone in the face, and he has burn their eyes out. I know that. I know those two methods of kung fu that he has.
No, those aren't.
I don't think that's kung fu.
I'll try to find it because they are specific in the terms.
I mean, probably I don't know. I've never seen him do any kind of martial arts.
But actually, no. It'd be Batman would probably be a better thing, because he actually does learn a special type of martial arts, from this secret clan that turned out to be evil later. But it's like, so yeah, he basically knows
psychology. Zatanna.
Oh yes, he does, doesn't he?
From an actual magician.
Oh yeah, like the whole reason he knows Zatanna, I think, in one continuity.
Well, I mean, I don't know what's continuity anymore with him. Considering he's like 30. I think he's meant to be like 30, and he's got like 5 kids. Each in there going up into one of them at like almost 20, I think. 25, when he had him when he was a kid.
I mean, there's so much. There's so much, but you get what I mean, though. It's like he in order to be the Batman, he has to learn this specific type of hardcore martial arts and escapology and stuff that is like, basically, adept at guerrilla warfare. Like in just fighting in a city for his purposes.
I can't find them, which is a pain, but they were like some kind of like Quasi-Gon Rao or something like that. Basically, the concept was that he had 2 specific martial arts that he was trained. One was specifically physical martial arts and all to do with pressure points, and the other one was to do with mental manipulation to help him stop, or at least lessen the effects of certain mind control, and so on and so forth. So, like, telepathy wouldn't affect him as much, or even he could break out of it.
Actually, that is incredibly good considering what Superman is, because it's like we talked about. I think we talked about this way back in the telepathy episode, where it's like so many incredible superheroes of incredible strength are just completely destroyed with telepathy. Like they just turning all of their strengths against them. by just messing with their minds. So it would make sense, to be proficient in a martial art that is all about self-control and, controlling your own mind and keeping it. In fact, I think I even tried to get an SPMA. I don't know if I ended up getting it, but for my character Irving, which had like adaptive mind.
I think you were either teetering on it, like you were either waiting for the experience for it, or you already had it. It was one of the two.
It was going to be so cool, but I didn't manage to. I didn't manage to get. Ironically, I got a similar proficiency in willpower for my current character Warhead, but that was completely by accident. Like, because I got like 3 natural 20s on willpower rolls during like a mind control story we were doing, and now I've got like a proficiency in a kind of mind control where it's like called rationalization. I think we called it, where I roll like a willpower and a history, and I basically can just like stop mind control, or in particular mind editing from happening. So I'd be just like, wait a minute, you're not my uncle.
But I think the thing is though that like that is a very specific way of using one's mind, and again that's technically a martial art, but the opposite of which that we actually have seen beforehand in a couple of the different I guess you could say in a couple of the different streams that we've done, or even in that specific encounter, we had a telepath that had basically a ton of illusions, like because there's an ability called Illusion Master or Illusion Creator, and you can like make different things. You can make sounds, you can make smells, you can make visual illusions, and so on and so forth. You can even make certain illusions that people can touch, or at least they believe they're touching, and so on and so forth. And with a high enough roll, you can make them have like multitudes of different abilities all in once. And basically, this telepath had like a ton of different abilities, and thanks to these 2 abilities, he was able to make an illusion of like lightning or darkness or some kind of whatever out of an element, or he could even make a physical object and throw it at someone or hit someone with it, and it would do damage to them. But what they didn't know is that it was psychic, and everyone was like, oh damn, okay, well I have some good physical defense. It goes right through it. Wait, what? And so the entire time, us as the players, we were like, what does he have? Like, does he have this? Does he have that? And we were trying to figure it out. And really, all it was just this one old man who had like a ton of different telepathic abilities, and was just stacking them all together and making new versions of the original abilities that he had. And that, I feel like that is the perfect formation of superpower martial arts of telepathy. Because you're like, okay, here's all my abilities, here's the discipline, like here's what I'm going to do with them, here's how I'm going to change them, here's how I'm going to alter them so that they can do all of these different things either at once or stacking them together so that they literally do one amazing effect. They literally synergize so well. Like, for instance, as I said with the My Hero Academia thing, you have the guys with super strength. Some of them have the abilities to like just launch themselves up so high that some people like suddenly believe that they have the ability of flight. Or in another specific one, if you want to actually go from this, is that a lot of people who have flight can move so fast that people believe that they are speedsters, but the truth is that they're just launching themselves at just great speeds. And it's not like they can run that fast, but they can at least fly that fast. So I mean, it's that kind of thing of like, even flight itself can grant a person some incredible abilities, like literally just slamming into someone. If you are as durable as a rock or iron and you smash into someone at 60 miles per hour, you're just gonna pace that person, and that's a low balling like speed. It's just and again, that is considerably a superpower martial art, is just flying yourself or throwing yourself at an opponent. As you said, the projectile manipulation one, making bullets either go faster or operating the trajectory.
That's the key. It's the physicality. No, physicality, I'd say.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
I think we're cutting up a bit. Yeah,
I could definitely.
We're just cutting up a bit on my end.
I could definitely say though that the most important one is to like talk about this one is I'd actually have to say is probably, if anyone's seen it or heard of it, is Fire Force, and it's just a world where certain people are born pyrokinetics, but there's like 2 or 3 different types of pyrokinetic, and it's like there's first generation, which basically are these beings or humans that have just turned into like these monsters, like basically fire zombies. You've then got second generations who can manipulate fire, and then you've got third generations who can generate fire in a specific way. The first ever guy that you ever see with that power is a guy called Shinra Kusakabe, who he can generate fire but only through his feet. And he can launch himself like a human missile. And he can do like all sorts of crazy things from the fire from his feet to allow him to like have super kicks, the ability of flight, omnidirectional movement, and he can even like create like jet blasts so he can ignite things from his feet. And later on you find someone else who can do something as overly ridiculous as they can heat up their body and then quickly cool it down. So they heat up the iron in their blood or in their body, and then they cool it down just so for a few seconds they basically have a body that is as hard as the hardest steel. So basically they can break through pillars, or they can block bullets with their own body. And one of those abilities is a guy who can pretty much have projectile manipulation, because as he fires the bullet, he can then control the heat on the back of the bullet as well as the potassium nitrate igniting. So you can basically overly extremify the explosion so that then the bullet travels faster, or you can compress and condense it and even maybe fizzle it out so that then the bullet only hits people at like a really low velocity. He can even have it that a single spark from if it hits an object, he can then make that have a massive explosion so it can actually bounce off of something and therefore actually control where it goes. So there's a ton of ridiculous abilities from just literally a world full of only technically one power. Like, so that is, to me, that's interesting. I don't know if you guys have any particular examples that you want to throw out. I guess we'll let Sam go. I've just been talking for a long time. Sam? Are you there? I assume not. Or have I cut out? Alex? Oh no. I think my Discord has gone. Technical difficulties. I'm not entirely sure.
Hear you. I can hear you.
There we go. Okay.
I have no problems with Sam. It's
Hello,
just
Joe?
with
Can you hear me
Joe.
guys now?
Joe is very cutting in and outy at the moment.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yes, I can
hear you.
I can hear you. Yeah, okay. I don't know. Discord is just being a little madam at the moment. It's just, yes, it's being very fussy.
I should say I got confused whenever you were saying superpowered martial artists. Whenever you told us we were going to be doing this, in my mind, I literally thought you meant like superpowered martial artists. My first ones were, of course, the Iron Fist.
Yes.
Oh, that still counts.
Slash
that
every
definitely
monk from D&D, because
Yes.
their main ability is to do all the cool flips and kicks and punches and stuff they do where they move really fast. But also with the magic fists and the ability to manipulate chi, the energy of people, and to use that in their own ways. I
mean, you could also say like
ranged attacks.
You can also say like any character from Naruto, and of course Dragon Ball Z.
I mean,
which is literally the ultimate superpower martial arts.
What's
I was going
Mortal
to have
Kombat?
more. I was going to bring in more, so I was before. I was going to mention more, so I was, Joe, like Mortal Kombat, where everyone in the game has their own martial artist style.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
I was actually amazed by this because Connor, who may be listening, actually brought one of these up to me. It was called like Poison and the Venom. Like Venom, it's a like 5 styles of combat. One of them is called Viper, I believe.
All right.
And I knew that Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat, Armageddon, and Deception, he does the Viper, which is a martial art technique with very quick punches and kicks. Augments this with his ability to steal souls and manipulate and like steal magic and do other stuff.
Oh damn.
Everyone in Mortal Kombat is a superpowered martial artist because they are superpowered and have martial arts.
Nice.
And it makes sense. It goes together. It's like in Avatar where like they've matched the existing, martial arts with their powers. I mean, like, for the power that he kind of has to do Viper and like, for soul stealing and stuff because it's quick, it's precise, and it's all emphasis on speed, not necessarily taking a hit, but getting enough hits on your attacker.
No,
And
absolutely.
also because it fits him well because he is pretty much a snake.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't going to go for that, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's literally
Because he's a. Depending, like the more modern interpretation of a snake, I mean, like a betrayer, someone that'll bite you. You like hides in the grass and then bites and attacks. Like
I guess,
he's an old man, and then suddenly, bam, he can kick your ass.
Yeah, I guess it sort of maxed out with his personality, I suppose. It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Like and that's the only example I really have because I don't remember anyone else's martial arts technique.
Well,
but
either way, you are 100% correct in the concept of, as you said, Iron Fist, because he learns a style of combat, and then it's literally the Iron Fist, which is he channels his chi into like a singular punch that does a lot of physical damage. You've then got, like, as I said before, like characters from Dragon Ball Z and Naruto, they manipulate their life force or ki or chakra to be able to physically enhance their strength, their speed, their abilities. I mean, in Dragon Ball Z, they are literal martial artists and brawlers who further enhance their body by creating like defensive auras around their skin to make them durable against other physical attacks. Some of them have the ability to control their energy to allow them to fly. Others have the ability to literally forcibly shoot out pure beams of energy from their own life force, and so on and so forth. Some of them actually can perform magic. Exactly, which brings me to Mortal Kombat, because they do have magic and chi and life energy manipulation abilities, and they actually pair that with martial arts. For instance, Johnny Cage is to some certain degree a martial artist for a long time, and then all of a sudden uses
ninja mime,
the green energy that he finds later, which allows him to put him on par with fighting elder gods, apparently. So
that's because of his descendant line and that crap they added to the remake, which I mean in the originals it made no sense, but
at least
probably because the originals were weird. But this one makes a little bit more sense.
At least they've got that though to like show that, like, even if it doesn't enhance it enough to make him stronger or faster or anything, which it does somehow, but even if it didn't, it's still just the fact that when coated in the green energy, he is resistant to Elder God's wrath, and also he can harm the immortal Elder Gods, which still within any and every right, that is still pretty damn impressive. That he has this ability. I guess you could also say technically anyone who's fighting against Superman who has a magically enhanced or even a magically covered body, because obviously they are then able to go toe to toe with him, or at least they are able to physically hurt him.
That's kind of the whole basis of Batman versus Superman, really. I mean, well, ignore the mech suit for the moment because that definitely helps. But the whole idea of like that, versus match is that Batman is the superior martial artist, or so he thinks, and it has a clear strategy of like how to take down Superman. Even though it is at a clear disadvantage by not having superpowers. So, that's kind of like the whole idea behind augmenting martial arts, with superpower martial arts is that it is, an extension. It's like it's the strategy. It's the, it is the coming together and knowing yourself and your opponent. Whereas just having powers isn't really enough. So it's kind of obvious when someone is relying on powers and someone is relying on superpowered martial arts.
Do you want to know the
If that makes any
craziest?
sense.
No, absolutely. Do you want to know the craziest superpower martial arts that I've seen recently?
Go for it.
So, I've finally got to talk about this. The show
Ooh.
and the
I
manga,
think I know what is coming.
and known as
Now I
Bucky,
leave.
known as Bucky. And in it, there is a man known as the world's strongest creature. This dude actually has, like, freaking super strength. Like, there is no denying it at this point. He can, like, lift cars, he can lift people without even worrying. And at one point, you then find out that his father, who was also the world's strongest creature before him, or at least he didn't necessarily have that title, but he apparently scared all of the US Army because in World War II, he beat 200 soldiers without having any guns, and they all were fully armed. He then goes aboard one of their ships and makes all of them jump into the water upon seeing him.
What?
The technique that he uses is called dress. And the technique known as dress is this. He grabs a man by the ankle and swings him around his body, quote, like a nunchuck. As he flings him around his body, and everyone is anywhere near it, he can just immediately smack anyone into their graves. Because there is nothing you can do against anywhere between 100 up to 250 pound man being smacked at you like the world's craziest nunchuck. And
Jeez.
later, the strongest being alive, Yujiro Hanma, then does this technique. And the target that he uses it for, he smashes them against a car multiple times.
Oh, ow.
And apparently, just from the speed of him being moved and whipped around like a nunchuck, his eyes start bleeding, so therefore all of his vision is not only blurry, but it becomes red. He starts losing his hearing because his blood is all rushing to his head, and he can't gain his senses because the centrifugal forces as he's being flung around. And the reason why it's called dress is because the only two people who have ever been able to master this technique, technically also the only two people who have ever been able to because they have super strength, fling the person around so much that not only the blood and the sweat and the tears that are coming off the person, but also the fact that the person themselves are a blur, it makes it look like as if they actually have a dress covering them.
Why?
So yeah, that was
That's insane.
That's my example.
That is utterly mad.
It's incredibly dumb.
Yes, but
Incredible.
it is incredibly dumb, but that technically all of that makes sense if someone could physically do that.
that is comically messed up.
Yes.
But like,
the neck
yeah,
would break long before the rest of that
Oh,
happened.
the first time that it's ever used, all of the spine is just ruined.
Oh yeah,
that
this
guy
guy's
is dead.
This is a
The
dead
second time it's
nunchuck.
used, the guy is supposedly, and I quote, much more durable than the average man. So you know, take that with a pinch of salt. But yes, you're absolutely right. The first and only ever time before this that it's ever used, it definitely kills anyone who is involved, other than the wielder.
I mean, to me, look. I'll say this. This sounds comical. I'm defending this martial art.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm defending
Don't.
this. I am. I'm defending this. Because in a
Defend.
real world scenario, if you actually had super strength, like, and you, the most effective way to like use this super strength is to use a human being like a weapon, and yet it sounds very weird and upsetting, but literally that would absolutely be effective because no one's going to argue with you using a living human being as some nunchucks and like destroying everything in your path. I mean, it's like,
Have
I'd
you
do it
ever
if I had
a
that.
human being fall on you? That
It hurt.
hurts. Imagine them actually on purposefully being swung at you.
I mean, all I'm imagining is the great comic book scene of Miss Marvel wielding Kyle Rayner as a club. From I think was it Countdown? That great comic book series.
Doomsday Clock. Do you mean?
No, Countdown.
Oh,
Like just Countdown.
okay.
This is what I'm talking about because it's like okay, in the real world where a human being can't pick up another human being to do these incredible moves, that it sounds ridiculous. You know, it's like, yeah, that wouldn't work. But if you do add the whole thing of super strength and just the ability to use that super strength, it would make sense. This is the thing. It's like saying, oh, I can pick up a building and drop it on someone and say, well, you can't do that. But it's like, well, with the logic that I have super strength, I can do that.
Exactly. I mean, it's literally like if you really were to go about it in another specific way or format, it's that concept of like, in a lot of circumstances or situations, like, oh, my character has magic or can create objects or manipulate this specific matter that can destroy any kind of metal. And it's like you go up against like a big golem made of metal, and then you're just like, well, I could shoot these beams, and then suddenly turns this energy, this anti-metal energy, into a sword. Every time this sword touches you, you will now be like sliced apart or burning constantly. And it's that thing of, if you wielded a human being with such ridiculous super strength, it would hurt, just because that a human being flung at another human is very painful and very dangerous to either of those two parties. Either the victim who is being struck or the victim who's being used. That's what I mean when I think of superpower martial arts. I think you are utilizing a power that is not normally capable for normal human beings or normal creatures. Even aliens, for instance, Superman, his species normally don't have super strength on their home planet, but on other planets or in around a certain suns, they do have special powers, and therefore it is then further enhanced thanks to those particular martial arts, or martial arts are further enhanced because of those particular powers. And that's sort of like one of the coolest things about this. I don't know. I know that like you both have your opinions on a ton of different ones, but if I were to say like the worst power like that I can think of off the top of my head, is possibly, just thinking about it, is well, to be fair, if I was actually to say it, I'd probably say the one from Charlotte where you have to be wet to be able to make a map. Or,
No, it's not to make a map. It's when you're wet and you go to a map, you can find out where people with powers are.
Yeah,
be someone that that's so.
That is probably the worst power that I have ever heard of, except from one. Okay, and there is one other one, and I think I just remembered it. there's a power where okay, so the power is you can give your power to someone else. That's it. That's the power.
Yeah, I don't really see any like martial arts compatible with that. To be fair, I will
Yeah.
agree with you there.
I
I
mean,
think I've seen a worse power.
go on.
One from X-Men 2 with a kid where his only power is that every time he blinks, he changes the channel.
I could still see that being used. Come on, there's a guy coming right towards you. He's a big soldier and he's about to gun you down because you're a mutant. Suddenly you just turn on
Yeah,
Babe
yeah.
Station.
How bad is your internet?
Mine.
Yeah.
No,
Apologies.
there's an even there's
No,
you know I was going to argue actually there's an even
Discord.
worse power.
Discord
But
is now
even-
telling me that my voice is not connected. So
Oh
I
no,
can hear you.
yeah, we can hear you. Are you
yeah, I
still
can hear
recording?
you.
Perhaps?
No, yeah, I'm still recording. It's just for some reason Discord is being the worst.
Remember,
Discord. Why do you hate us? Why?
Tune in
Remember
next
that
time as we use Zoom because apparently it's the only thing that can be trusted. Yeah, I hope.
I mean, I don't use Zoom. I remembered
I use-
remembered a good case of superpowered martial arts.
Oh,
That
go
is their
for it.
defining trait is the fact that it's a superpowered martial artist. Technically,
Go on.
is Jedi.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
Because no, actually, wielding a lightsaber is a superpower martial artist technique. Because it is said that you cannot wield it well without the Force.
I mean, General Grievous.
I mean, yeah, but mostly because this is maybe before the prequels I'm watching. This is mentioned quite a lot in Knights of the Old Republic.
I mean, to be fair,
Because
General Grievous is specifically built to be able to wield them and learn under them. So again, that's one individual out of so far that we know the entirety of the galaxy. Because almost anyone who ends up wielding one can use the Force in some way, shape, or form.
yeah.
Well, except from the
No, I
Mandalorian.
don't know that. I don't know the in-universe reason why that is. I'm assuming it's something to do with the fact that it's like the crystals inside are Force crystals. Maybe it has something to do with them wielding it better.
I think it's
moves in tandem.
I think
No.
it's just the concept of this is an extremely dangerous weapon, and if you fling it around effortlessly, you're gonna harm yourself.
Unless you can feel the world around you and know everything that's happening to you, like a Jedi.
Maybe, but no, that's a really good one. I mean, obviously, they also have force-based style of combat as well, the ability to move very fast and have super strength. It's like telekinetic, where they cover their arms in a thin layer of the Force, and they punch through a droid as if their arms are a 50 caliber cannon or something.
And it's
Actually, have
literally-
their own martial arts techniques.
Yes,
Yeah,
they have
they-
tons.
Again,
It's
if you
literally-
play Knights of the Republic.
It's literally all.
Yeah,
It's literally all. It's also part mind training as well. That's a big part of the Force. It's the internal struggle and why there's different factions who use the Force in different ways because they're channeling their own. They can channel it through rage, through balance and peace. They can just They can have a mixture of the two. Usually not because they're opposing forces, but theoretically
weird,
you can use it as a
Traditions like the Night Sisters.
yeah,
They're
basically.
magic.
I was-
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is different martial arts techniques.
yeah.
It is weird.
There's a ton of them. I mean, in all honesty, there's a ton of them. I mean, you can even have characters that have poison generation and stuff like that, or flame breath, and they use them in tandem with their
In
own
the Force?
ability. No, I'm talking about superpowers in general. You have users of different abilities that you wouldn't necessarily see coming, where it's they can just coat their weapons in poison that they generate, and or
Like Assamites.
or what was it called? there's another one as well. Damn it, I've entirely forgotten. But there's a ton of ridiculously really good abilities in so many different shows and so much different fiction that are like, it's one note, but you could add it to what you already have. Like, as I said, like an ability where it's, oh yeah, you can make poison, like you can secrete it, but then if you cover it in your blade and then oh, I'm just a sword fighter. Oh, by the way, as this sword cuts into your flesh, you will now be poisoned, and it's much more deadly than if you were to just touch it. I've actually got a question for the both of you then. So if you had to choose one power, and then base a fighting style, or at least let's say make a specific martial art technique around it, or thanks to it, what would it be? And how would it work?
I have so many ideas, actually.
I mean, I have one.
Go for it.
You
Get yours
first,
first.
Alex?
Yours first. No, you go first. You go first.
Well, I want the same power that Sherlock Holmes has in with the Robert Downey Jr. movies, and somewhat in the actual books. It's less like described as such, but it is seen where he can more or less predict what the person's going to do in a fight.
Okay.
So you can like say you could realize he's going to probably give me a left swing, so I'm going to go duck. So what's he going to do next? He'll definitely go for a downward swing. Go to the left side of that. Knock him in the solar plexus here. Like make it like a chess move, like a chess game. Knowing every single move, how to counter it. So you win the fight before you actually have to start a fight.
It's like probability calculation martial arts.
It's pretty much adaptive mind understanding by inciting the person's behavior or previous patterns, and then understanding what they'll do next based on, as you said, probability.
Or even like, I know this is probably going to be a deep reference, the Clock King in the Batman animated series.
Yes.
One of his weird ones is he knew the exact timing of every attack Batman would be able to do, so he could dodge it then by realizing that like a swing takes 0.4 seconds. I remember that. That was one of the things he could just like he had to dodge perfectly because he knew the exact timings.
There's one version of the
that's the one
I was just going to say there's one version of the Clock King where he actually becomes there's a version of the Clock King where he actually becomes a metahuman, and he can keep going backwards in time, but only by 20 seconds. And so what he does is he goes back in time, and then he gets beaten and arrested by Batman, and then he rewinds 20 seconds, and then he just dodges all of his attacks, and then he like trips him up, and as he falls down, he's like, well, I guess you. Ah, damn it. And then he rewinds to like a few seconds and he goes, haha, looks like you fell over. Damn it. And then he rewinds again and he goes, have a nice trip. See you next fall. Haha, gotcha. And then he like runs away. It's like, that's literally how he uses his time powers.
He's the world's pettiest man.
He is the world's pettiest man. Yeah, exactly.
It's petty foo is what he's done.
Pretty much time foo. It's basically what... It's basically what I guess you could say Dio or Legion does, where, stop time, slash a guy because he can't fight back, resume time, all the cuts happen at once.
Slightly less in that.
That's like, that's
at least have a chance.
No. I'm saying that like as a branch off from like time manipulation. I'm saying time stopping.
Oh,
yeah. That's honestly, that is exactly. I mean, there were so many great SPMAs that Legion had, but it was like, I love the fact that just the little moments of him in a fight where he would just stop time and have a time to just knock all of the possessions on his way out, like fleeing from a fight. It's just like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
Knocked over like 2 vases and then like just flipped up someone's paperwork across the hallway. It's like, nerd, and then just left.
Yeah, that's great use of martial arts. I would gotta say.
Time
Again, that's probably
bullying.
what I would do.
Legion.
That's what, yeah, time bullying. That's bully foo. We've got. I mean, I love that. Oh, da da da. That's Legion. Uh, I mean, I've got one that's something that I actually did try to create in the game. Unfortunately, the game got cut short, but I did have this like planned out, an actual sort of martial arts style for someone with turtle physiology,
Oh right.
where it would be like, yeah, because I like the idea of physiology. We never really discussed it much, but I think it's like very underrated, physiology. I mean, you've got like Phoenix and and the like, canine physiology and all that, but then there's turtle physiology that you've just got a massive defensive thing on your back, like a huge amount of physical resistance. So my idea was to create an entire martial arts style that sort of integrated that. So like you could do like, quick turns so that if something is going to hit you face on, you just turn your back and you just like you basically shield yourself, or like you find a way of like shielding yourself and just basically like rooting yourself to the spot and being this defense of other people and then going out for attacks. Because you've literally got like a shield right on your back and you're just this massive bulky structure that can get in the way of attacks, and you can just like wear your opponent down by having them waste their attacks on like doing no damage to you and then just like flattening them.
See
I called it turtle power.
See, that kind of style reminds me a lot of like like the knights in Dark Souls 2. They're covered head to toe in like this massive heavy suit of armor, and it's got like a turtle shell part on their back. And if you go up behind them, not only can you not backstab them, but also if you attack once behind them, they just roll backwards, like they just like fall backwards, and it does so much damage, and it pins you for a few seconds. And it's that's
what I'm
awful.
talking about. It is like, it is like the ninja's worst enemy. It's like all of your dirty tactics of like trying to stab someone in the back just doesn't work. Like my back is unstabbable. It has like a huge resistant shell, and I could just literally fall backwards on you, or just fall forwards and scoot in the other and scoot around with my hard belly, my smooth belly, and
you
just
can
flip
literally
around.
turtle behind your own shell or your own shields.
Exactly. It's like, and that's like, I just really like the idea of like, all of these martial arts abilities on top of like my actual physiology, which was like very different from a human's. Like I had a huge amount of physical resistance. I had night vision as well, and I also had the ability to. I don't know if I took the ability, but yeah, I think I had water breathing as my ability, so I could also do underwater combat
This is
if I
another thing.
desired.
Just another explanation. The ability to see in the dark, if it is a natural power that you as a creature has, that's technically a superpower martial art. The ability to fight in any specific circumstance, because the inability to be blinded suddenly is fine. Because you remove it. And then you have, for instance, in another situation, as you said, the ability to breathe underwater and swim. Now you suddenly have the ability to fight underwater, which is, again, another superpower martial arts, because most humans cannot fight underwater, and especially they cannot breathe underwater. So it suddenly grants you those kind of abilities that normal humans can't.
Well, someone is just paddling around trying to not drown. You're just kicking their ass underneath the waves.
Exactly.
It's honestly no contest at that point, unless that would be. I mean, I'm not sure if I took. I have to dig out that sheet eventually, because I miss my turtle power quite a lot. I really do. I just thought, again, it's like, okay, I started it off as a gag, just like having martial artist who was also a turtle and stuff, anime reference, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle references. But I actually got really into actually thinking well, how would I be in a combat situation with this? Because one of the downsides is that I was so bulky, if I didn't tank an attack, then I'm not going to evade it. My evasion was practically nothing the way I rolled it.
Yeah.
So that would be a downside. So I'd have to make up with it in other moves, either by spinning around or just using my soft body, or on my hard body, it's just like, or like just transforming. Like I'd have to reactively transform in order for any of this to work in the first place, because I'm just a squishy human out of my transformation.
I mean, it's one thing to have a power and have all these abilities, and yeah, as you said, if you're not in the actual transformation that it requires, then that's another downside. But anything that I'd say, anything that requires the actual power, even if you just need to be in that form to be able to perform any of these specific feats, that would be still considered as a superpower martial arts, because it literally is a martial art that required a superpower to even just exist to be able to actually do it. So it's gonna be kind of an interesting, way to look at every kind of power, especially if you've never heard of this concept before and you're now tuning in. Any single time that someone is fighting in any particular style of way, it is by technicality a superpower martial art, because it is a fighting style that could not exist thanks to flight, super strength, a physical durability, invulnerability, healing factor. Hell, Wolverine's fighting style is even laid claim by T'Challa, aka Black Panther, that he fights it like a ferocious animal, and he doesn't even bother to dodge an attack, because that he is always under the impression that he will always heal from it. And technically Deadpool is the same way. He gets shot constantly and he'll just walk through the bullet fire and just go for the kill. And it's exactly that kind of thing, because if you always feel invulnerable, you have this sudden sense of, I can hit this guy in the way that I choose. And we see that in sorry Sam, One Piece, where you have characters that can turn into elements, and by all
Take a drink.
Connor knew this was going to happen,
and by all
and he
all
also
means,
knew I'd be annoyed.
Good, and by all means, you have this ability of, okay, I can turn into smoke, I can turn into fire, I can turn into lava, light, dark, whatever. And the second that someone shoots you through the head, there's a hole, and it's just where the hole is, it's just fire, and then that fire then suddenly closes up, and your head is back to normal. You take 0 damage, and the entire time your body looks human, but it actually is flame, and so you can be cut, slashed, blasted apart, and your body will still be fine, because it's actually just, you are a fire person, you are a smoke man, you are a light woman, you are a, whatever kind of elemental being or person that you have that power of. And some of these people just walk through bullet hail, and they just just walk through this as they're getting shot to pieces, and their bodies are just made of this element, so it doesn't matter, and then they just land a very boring hit, or an impressive one, for instance, a punch that completely just combusts a load of things, or a kick at the speed of light. Either way, powers can grant that factor of fighting in a style that you couldn't already do. It's almost like the power is a help for that delivery system of combat, whether it's defense, as you said, Alex, or if it's evasion, or if it's specifically being able to discipline oneself, spirit, mind, or body, fighting or defending. And personally, that's one of the reasons why I say, any mimicry power is so cool. To be able to, turn one's body into lightning or fire or water or ice or slime or acid or lava or whatever kind of element that you can think of, even molten metal. If you get punched by this person, and all it is it's just the pressure of very strong water or lightning or whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, you can't really fight back against that very easily by punching or kicking them, because you'll hurt yourself or you won't even bother hurting them. And I think that's one of the coolest things. It's one of the scariest things about mimics. I am a massive mimic fanboy.
Yeah, just that it's the mimic fan. I'll get a load of this mimic fan. Oh, the mimic fandom. No, I was gonna say, I was going to say as well, actually, that's kind of distinguishes superpower martial arts from just like plain superpowers and, just and martial arts in general, is that it is something, well, I mean, it ties it direct to martial arts because martial arts are things that you learn and develop yourself. And I think that's why they have like an engaging, appeal in both television and in games because it's something that you can actually level up and train for and actually, sort of personalize to yourself even more because it's something that you have learned. It's a discipline that you've earned through training or by coming up with a way of using your powers with a specific technique. And I find that the most interesting of SPMOs. That's why I really like it in the game as well. It's like it really flexes your creativity muscle
Mm.
of like how these fit, how is that going to work? How will I learn how to do this? And also, it's a thing that's kind of cool. Another cool thing about Avatar is that the different martial arts, the different disciplines of bending skills, they can learn from each other. And in fact, that's the key to victory a lot of times. Like, you know, I mean, Iroh, for example, who is a truly great character in that series, he learns a lot more disciplines and just knows different skills by going from different to different bending disciplines. Like he learns breathing techniques from the Air Nation and waterbenders, so he can like you know keep himself at a good temperature even in freezing cold temperatures. This is how they like stop firebenders. In prisons,
I'm.
like you can
I
actually.
think
Yeah,
there's
I'm
like.
not sure if it was waterbender
I think
or.
there's like three or four techniques that he actually
Mhm.
uses. Like someone actually like pointed this out like an Easter egg thing. There's actually three or four techniques that he uses inside of that show that are all based off of one of the different schools. Like there's a moment where he's fighting against the Earthbenders and he's using his like those steel chains and everything, and the fighting style that he is using is equivalent to that of another Earthbender because he's using a lot of center of gravity style of fighting. There's a moment that he tells Zuko about the dragon's breath, and in other words, like the ability to like keep one's temperature regulated in cold temperatures by breathing fire. It's like there's what is it? He obviously learns the manipulation of lightning through and thanks to a waterbender. And there was another thing that like they don't really talk about too much, but it's like I think he talks about the fact that his love of music comes from his understanding that apparently the Air Tribe had a lot of different wind instruments, and if you notice, most of his instruments that he finds are wind
Oh
instruments,
yeah.
and that's such a cool like thing that someone did. That's not really like my main thing. Like, I noticed it only after someone told me about it, but yes, that is brilliant. So if anyone knows who exactly that was who said that, like opened my eyes basically. Uh,
That's what I say. It's like it's so cool because like anyone can learn that. And that's the thing, like powers in general, like, we're cool and we want them, but it's like this idea that you just sort of gain them and you instantly know how to use them and activate them, or you're just born with them. And that doesn't have nearly as much appeal as like gaining these powers but honing them and like using them your own way. So like you can actually be the best at these powers, or like at least unique in your own way because you're studying from
I
others.
think it's why people like the concept of stands and spells in a lot of different magic style things, and as I said, stands from JoJo's, because JoJo's stands are specifically based on your current obsessions and personalities, as well as your ambitions and fears. And then you've then got spells like in Harry Potter or in Black Clover. Yes, I am starting to watch it now.
It's
Or
fun.
in
It's
like
good.
Seven Deadly Sins or any sort of show like that where magic exists. It comes from that unique thing of you could almost create your own through specific ways. And once you know how to crack that code, it kind of feels like that thing of, well, this spell is specifically unique to myself. I am able to create this spell through my knowledge of it, and so on and so forth. And because of that, it's that thing of as you said, it's that thing of you learn or you get taught or you develop those skills. Whereas with a spell and with magic, it's like learn these things. Most of the time, magic and spells usually come from being taught them. In fact, one of two of, if not three of the best abilities that are in most of these shows, for instance, the ability of the stands, you find out that they develop over time. So if your body and spirit, or technically if you just personally are under a lot of emotional or mental stress or even physical stress, your stand can actually evolve to give you different specific abilities based on your wants, wishes, or needs. For instance, there's this whole thing that when you see it in part 4, there's this one kid who at first has this ability to only make sounds and noises from his stand, but then later on it can make words, and those words can have different abilities and meanings. Like he has like this one where it's like, it says "foosh" and it immediately creates a massive gust of wind that knocks back anyone, or "sizzle" and anything that touches it is immediately burned, and that word is immediately very hot, and so on and so forth. And later on he gets the ability to, because he's terrified of this tank moving towards him, his stand then evolves again, and it then has the ability to control gravity, and it makes it heavier and heavier to the point of which it can no longer move, or at least it can no longer move very easily. And through that sort of meaning, we can see that plus the pairing of spells. You create spells based on what you need. For instance, in D&D, I'll have a counter spell, and I'll have prestidigitation, I'll have fireball, I'll have this, I'll have that. You get different things, so you have a tool belt of different abilities, and that in on itself is sort of a superpower martial arts, because you like, okay, I have magic, I can do almost anything with this. Cool, I'll have that, and I'll have that, and I'll have that. Almost like you got like a little shopping cart of different special powers or feats or spells, and that's why I think a lot of people are like more drawn to magic than certain types of superpowers, because
That might actually be why I'm really into it. To be honest, like this has actually become a revelation for me to really, because you're right, and it's like, yeah, I can be like a shopping. I am like on supermarket sweep in a lot of these games, where I'm like, yeah, I'll have that, I'll have that, I'll have that, I'll do that. That'll be for that thing. I might not need that, but that is really cool. I'll have that, I'll have that. And like, I've never really had that in like superhero sims, but I have had that in a lot of fantasy settings.
Aspen.
Uh, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying as well. It's like Adamite Tail scratches that itch for me
Absolutely.
because I can do that.
It,
Not to be a shameless plug for this game, even though this is a shameless plug for this game, but it's like, that is why I like that so much, because it's like it does that for me, which I normally like. Like usually I don't like superhero games that much because they don't really have that element in it. But it's like, yeah, I can mix and match. I can do all of these things and to my specifications, and I can even purchase them if I so desire.
yes. I mean, it's one of the things that I was going to say. Like, you and Sam have both done similar sort of styles of things like that. As you played as Presto Sam, and as you played as Aspen Alex. Because Aspen, you were like, oh, I'll take a couple of abilities, and people were saying, well, you should take a buff so that you can do more damage and you can heal more. Oh, well,
Nah.
I'll take this other ability. And then, maybe I should go for a buff. Oh, but this ability, I gotta have this just in case. And eventually you just had no buffs. Your damage on both abilities was still only 2d8s. But ultimately, you were literally the Swiss Army knife of nature and biology. You could heal any wound, remove any illness, worsen any ailment. You could grow any type of plant, make any kind of poison, or create and manipulate any type of form of nature, even if it was natural, unnatural, whether it was a creature, whether it was plant life. You had everything at the palm of your hands. And with Presto, you could manipulate everything, but you were always wanting something more, like the power stones of other beings, such as Legion, and at one point you were trying to get your hands on like a power stone for biology manipulation, so that you could literally make actual living matter as well. And as I said to both of you during the time that you were playing both of those different games, it is 100% possible. It's just all about the prep, and it's all about where you'll go and how you'll get it.
Oh, the places you'll go.
The things you'll see. But I think
It is. It's like I think that you're like I got an image of you as like Pinhead from Hellraiser just there, Joe. It's just like I have such sights to show you.
and maybe I am, but for now, that will be a secret. An ancient secret passed down to the next generation of superpowered martial artists. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for staying tuned. If you guys liked or enjoyed any of this, please like and subscribe. I hate saying those words, but I'm going to say them again. Yes, please like and subscribe to the Animite Tales YouTube channel, as well as check out the Twitch, because we do streams every fortnight of the game itself as we play, as we do dev plays, as we basically play the game and play test it for all of you guys to enjoy. We do those from 3 till 6 BST, that's British summertime. And if you guys would like to check out Patreon just to support us and make sure that this game can actually reach all of you, and also so that you can be a part of it, as you can actually make characters and items that can be inside of the game itself and help us to be able to further this game for much more. However, if you just want to listen to more of our podcasts, or just specifically stick around for any more content, definitely check us out at Animite Tales, or check me out at Animite Tales on Twitter. Do you have anything that you guys wish to say or plug for we end this?
I guess, like, yeah, well, tune into us on Twitch as well, because if you want to see some of those SPMAs showcased there, if you were interested in the crazy stuff we come up with. Also, you can follow me at Obscuricom on Twitter. I don't know why you would, though, because I talk a load of nonsense, but you totally can. Yeah. And yeah, just brush your teeth every night, and stay warm.
What if I don't want to stay warm?
Well, tough.
What do you have to say, Sam?
What do I have to say? You know what? Play Mass Effect. It's a good game. We got a Legendary Edition just came out there a few days ago. Good. Play it.
We can tell.
Be Commander Shepard.
We can tell when Sam has had nothing to say about a subject, because he has been quite quiet.
It's also like he's just so tired because he's been working time at Tesco's, and it's like in the thing, because it was like last night as well. I was talking to him, and you just like normally when you're up, it's like, no, stay around, drink beer, I'm Northern Irish, that's my impression of Sam, and like
it's almost good.
Potatoes Guinness.
Oh no.
And like, but now he's just sort of like very tired and quiet. It's like, I just want to go to sleep. Leave me alone.
I just don't have much to talk about SPMAs.
Well, if you'd like to hear
as you saw last week, when there's a topic I love and enjoy, I will get in.
Oh, absolutely.
When there's a topic I only mildly have ideas for, I'll just hang back.
Well, so next week, if we actually have another interesting idea or interesting subject, maybe you'll be awakened. If you haven't also checked out this, I did a podcast episode with Cookie Swagger as we spoke about, we just pretty much reviewed the entirety of Invincible, the animated show on Amazon, so definitely check that out. Both the show and the review. Cookie was ever so lovely to basically just talk with me about that. That was incredible. The show I loved absolutely so much, and that review was really funny. To be specifically, we'll be doing a special episode on that Power podcast as well. Specifically talking and describing a bunch of the powers in the Power podcast that actually, all of the different powers that actually show up in Invincible. So again, if you guys are wanting to listen to that, definitely check it out. We'll have Cookie back, and we might very well have another guest for that. Ooh. But as for next week, I have no idea. I mean...
Oh, perhaps suggest some in the comments. Suggest things that'll keep Sam interested and will ignite a passion in his heart.
I mean, is there anything that...
Yes, Connor. You know what I like?
Well, this will go out
You
later
wanna
tonight,
watch?
so hopefully, we'll see some comments.
Do you remember he told me a comment he was going to write just before this started, and I can't remember what the hell it was about.
And tell him to write it. So we're doing all
He
this
has.
work.
He has wrote it.
Juice comments every now and again, and just the last one was at the end of the last session, and Juice just went, "Oh, so that's what I missed in the first 15, 16 minutes."
You know what? I'm just hoping this one actually survives, unlike the very first one. Unlike the first session last time. I hope this one, because you kept cutting out, will survive.
Yeah, please, Jesus, please.
Please don't make me have to see them. Please.
Please don't make us use Zoom.
More than likely, we'll have to do Zoom, unless if Discord is going to behave, but we'll find out soon enough, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, we've had so many problems with it. Like, tell you what, fight it out in the comments. Should we use Zoom? Just more engagement, please.
More engagement. Tell me how dumb my opinions are, or at least tell Sam how northern he is in Irish.
Indeed.
But yes, thank you very much for listening. Take care, and maybe next week we'll talk about something that will awaken Sam's passion, or maybe, just maybe,
Not.
it might be a One Piece review podcast. See you guys later. Check in next week.
That'll awaken me.
Awaken you for anger. It'll just be that moment that I'll start like the first sentence. Anyway, welcome back to the Power Podcast. This week we're talking about One Piece. I haven't been able to hear or see of Sam at all, and then I just hear a knock at the door. Hang on a second. Sam, what are you doing? No, I'm sorry. You just hear Sam just come in on my end, and he just goes, and that's the end of the Power Podcast, guys.
That was the only piece.
I
see I've turned you into many pieces.
I guess you aren't a piece anymore. Not one piece, anyway. Anyway, thank you very much, guys, for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you in the future.
That was a rather late outro, guys, but I guess what they always say, better late than never. Ciao, ciao for now.